Subnautica is a series I've been interested in for quite a while, but I just never really got around to playing it, mainly because I was just burned out on the survival genre for a really long time. But also because I'm kind of a little baby, and the idea of plunging hundreds of meters deep into an unexplored alien ocean filled with leviathans the size of several school buses wasn't exactly something I had on my bucket list. And as a matter of fact, I played the game almost entirely in VR, as if seeing these creatures in 2D wasn't already horrifying enough. I could almost feel the cold, dark, ocean water running down my skin as my underwear slowly filled with piss upon hearing the echoing roars of a Reaper Leviathan travel through the dark abyss of Subnautica. Before we get into this, I want to issue a warning that there will be clips showing all the different zones and monsters, but I won't be spoiling the story at all beyond the basic premise. Also, all of the footage you'll be seeing was taken in creative mode, so just keep that in mind if, for example, you see me swimming next to a bunch of typically hostile mobs. In Subnautica, you play as Riley Robinson, one of several survivors of the Aurora crash, landing on planet 4546b, and your goal is to get the freak off of this hellhole planet. Immediately upon starting the game, you're greeted with a pretty epic cutscene as you hastily descend towards the planet in a life pod. Once you reach the water, you put out a few fires, plunge into the depths, and begin your adventure. And from here on out, you're almost entirely on your own. Something I really enjoy about Subnautica that puts it ahead of tons of other survival games is the very unique progression system. This game is an incredibly freeform experience from start to finish. From the second that you enter the water to the moment you reach the credits, your experience is completely unique to how you decide to approach your playthrough. And the reason for this is pretty simple. First of all, Subnautica gets rid of the tech tree progression system typically seen in survival games, instead opting for a system that rewards exploration and bravery above all else. If you want to unlock the Sea Glide, for example, which is a battery-powered device that greatly boosts your swim speed, you first have to craft a scanner, venture out into the unknown depths, and search for Sea Glide fragments. Once you've collected enough of these fragments, you'll have unlocked Sea Glide Research, and you can finally build your very own Sea Glide. And the same goes for almost every single craftable item in the game. You're incentivized to push past your comfort zone and ditch the safe, shallow waters filled with peepers, tons of resources, and all the oxygen you could ever ask for in favor of exploring the deep, dark abyss in the name of progress. And slowly over time, you'll continue to build up your arsenal of tools to allow for deeper, scarier, and longer expeditions as you slowly unravel all the mysteries Planet 4546b has to offer. You'll start off with nothing but a few essentials necessary for survival, and eventually you obtain your Sea Moth, allowing for deeper dives and safety from the hostile enemies scattered across the world. You'll even eventually get a Cyclops submarine, which can act as a mobile base with a fabricator and storage, as well as a goddamn mech suit, allowing for seafloor expeditions and even enabling you to take on the most formidable creatures Subnautica has to offer in one-on-one combat. The game offers such an amazing sense of progression that almost feels like one big puzzle. Because sure, you don't necessarily need a Sea Moth or a Cyclops to explore 200 meters below the ocean's surface, and the game doesn't block your progression or penalize you at all for making that decision. However, you do need to figure out how you're going to maintain your oxygen levels when you're 200 meters underwater, so now you're exploring all the possible options to progress further. Do you build a comically large pipe reaching all the way down to the deepest depths of the ocean, or do you hope and pray that an oxygen tank and fins will be enough? Do you throw a flare to distract a predator as it chases you relentlessly in its natural habitat, or stand your ground with nothing but a survival knife and a pair of adamantium nuts the size of boulders? It's going to pit you up against so many different problems, but it gives you several ways to solve each one. And this leads to a truly incredible, unique experience for each person that plays the game, because everyone is going to explore the map at a different pace, find blueprints and key items at separate intervals, and approach each problem in their own way. On top of exploration being super cool, the game is simply just amazing to look at. It may not have the graphical fidelity of The Forest or Ark Survival Evolved, but it makes up for it with a beautiful art style filled with alien creatures that simulate a living, breathing ecosystem, deep, dark caves, and bioluminescent flora generously scattered throughout the map. There are several unique biomes to explore, as well as tons of creatures to interact with, ranging from fish the size of a football to leviathans large enough to carry a house on their back. It's a truly stunning game to explore, and I still find myself peacefully cruising in my Seamoth from time to time, just so I can slowly take in all the wonderful sights the game has to offer. If you have access to a VR headset, I would highly recommend playing the game that way, because seeing this world and all its inhabitants at their original scale in VR is an unbelievable experience that will keep you engrossed for hours. Moving on, I've gotta give credit to the environmental design because the game does such an amazing job at setting up expectations for what's to come. That's the best way I could phrase it, and I know it might not make much sense at all, so let me explain a little bit. At the start of the game, the water is relatively shallow, the creatures are entirely passive, there's an abundance of resources, and overall, it's just a very safe place to be. And the environment portrays that with its use of silly goofy fish designs, colorful grasses, bioluminescent plants, etc. However, as you progress a little bit further, the water starts to get deeper. Everything is darker because the sun simply just doesn't reach so deep. The tiny little cute fish, bioluminescent plants, and beautiful flowing seagrasses get replaced with large predatory creatures, mounds of sand, and massive geothermal vents aggressively spewing gases. This immediately lets you know that you're no longer in a safe, secure, shallow paradise, but rather an unforgiving alien ocean filled with danger at every turn, and it's only going to become worse the farther you go. Also, the sound design as you explore is equally mesmerizing and terrifying because in this game you'll find the most beautiful, angelic soundtrack your ears have ever heard, along with the scariest, most blood-curdling screams echoing across the darkness of the ocean, so I'll just leave you with a few clips to look at and listen to right here. If you enjoy what you're seeing so far, consider hitting that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and it's not like you have anything to lose besides your virginity anyway, so back to the video. Unfortunately, as beautiful and amazing as the game is, I did start to get a little bit annoyed with all the backtracking, which might have been a result of my own actions, but it still got very frustrating constantly going back and forth to the same zones over and over again because I needed specific resources or I had to find a new blueprint. This is probably a super hot take within the Subnautica community, but I think this game would benefit greatly from a minimap that would dynamically fill itself out as you explore different areas. At this point, I've kinda just rambled on a lot about exploration and graphics, so you're probably wondering what you actually do in Subnautica besides exploring. As I've already stated, there is an overarching goal of booking it off the planet, but that certainly isn't just a straight path forward by any means. First and foremost, this is of course a survival game, and there are 4 unique game modes to choose from. First up is Survival Mode, which is the same generic resource management simulator you'll find in every other survival game using food, water, and oxygen. Hardcore Mode, which is just survival mode except your save is deleted when you die, and you have to start over completely. Freedom Mode, which still requires you to survive with health and oxygen, but you don't need to manage food or water. And finally, Creative Mode, which gives you infinite health, food, water, oxygen, and building materials, but you are unable to progress the story. In typical fashion with the genre, you start with practically nothing, and you slowly gather materials and create new technology as you explore the world piece by piece. As you begin to stockpile more resources, tools, and vehicles, you'll probably want to start a base eventually. Thankfully, this game has a really incredible building system, and although it isn't as deep or customizable as something like Minecraft or even Ark for example, it offers a very simplified, streamlined process that allows you to make some pretty amazing creations. You have plenty of basic parts to choose from, such as a simple circular room structure that can be accompanied by tunnels and ladders to connect to other rooms, and some more fancy buildings like the moon pool, which acts as storage and even a charger for your sea moth and prawn suit. You can place lockers for storage, fabricators for crafting, chargers for batteries and power cells, aquariums where you can grow fish and plants alike, solar panels for collecting energy, and so many more cool little structures that you'll inevitably unlock in one way or another on your journey. Like I said, it isn't as in-depth as Minecraft, where you're building a completely unique home, literally piece by piece, but it's deep enough that you can spend dozens of hours simply just collecting materials to expand and upgrade your base. There's also a really neat mechanic where your base has hull integrity, and if you place too many structures without properly reinforcing your base, cracks will start to form, and your base will flood very quickly. I will admit that on paper this sounds really annoying, but they're very generous with the amount of hull integrity you receive for reinforcements, and they're not difficult to make at all, so it's really just a cool little gimmick that helps sell the feeling of operating an underwater base, and it also serves as one of very many reminders that you are absolutely not welcome on this planet by any means. And that just about sums it up. Overall, Subnautica is an incredible game that filled me with joy, awe, fear, and sometimes frustration as I slowly explored every single crevice and discovered new alien life forms throughout my playthrough. It was an absolute blast to play every single second of the way, with the exception of some minor inconveniences, but I'm super excited to see what they have in store for Subnautica 3 regardless. If you're looking for a heavily story and exploration focused survival game with an incredible atmosphere and unforgettable expeditions throughout the entire runtime, I can't recommend this enough. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.